Because its overall body is not used to maybe the 9th, 10th, 11th and 4th rep with a certain weight. So that makes the body grow then, going through this pain barrier, experiencing pain in your muscles and aching, and just then go on and go on and go on. And this last 2 or 3 or 4 repetitions, that's what makes actually the muscle then grow. And that divides then one from a champion and one from not being a champion. If you can go through this pain barrier, you make it to be a champion. If you can't go through, forget it. And that's what most people lack, is on this, having the guts to go in and just say, I go through and I don't care what happens. You know, it aches, and if I fall down, I have no fear of fainting in the gym, because I know it could happen. I threw up many times while I was working out, but it doesn't matter, because its overall body is not used to maybe the 9th, 10th, 11th and 4th rep with a certain weight. So that makes the body grow then, going through this pain barrier, experiencing pain in your muscles and aching, and just then go on and go on and go on. And this last 2 or 3 or 4 repetitions, that's what makes actually the muscle then grow. And that divides then one from a champion and one from not being a champion. If you can go through this pain barrier, you make it to be a champion. If you can go through, forget it. And that's what most people lack, is on this, having the guts to go in and just say, I go through and I don't care what happens. You know, it aches, and if I fall down, I have no fear of fainting in the gym, because I know it could happen. I threw up many times while I was working out, but it doesn't matter, because it's all worthwhile. The feeling you can get in the gym, or the most satisfying feeling you can get in the gym, is the pump. Let's say you train your biceps. Blood is rushing into your muscles, and that's what we call the pump. Your muscles get a really tight feeling, like your skin is going to explode any minute. You know, it's really tight. It's like somebody blowing air into your muscle. It just blows up, and it feels different. It feels fantastic. The greatest feeling you can get in the gym, or the most satisfying feeling you can get in the gym, is the pump. Let's say you train your biceps. Blood is rushing into your muscles, and that's what we call the pump. Your muscles get a really tight feeling, like your skin is going to explode any minute. You know, it's really tight. It's like somebody blowing air into your muscle. It just blows up, and it feels different. It feels fantastic. The greatest feeling you can get in the gym, or the most satisfying feeling you can get in the gym, is the pump. Weight. So it makes the body grow then, going through this pain barrier, experiencing pain in your muscles and aching, and just then go on and go on and go on. And this last 2 or 3 or 4 repetitions, that's what makes actually the muscle then grow. And that divides then one from a champion and one from not being a champion. If you can go through this pain barrier, you make it to be a champion. If you can go through, forget it. And that's what most people lack, is on this, having the guts to go in and just say, I go through and I don't care what happens. You know, it aches, and if I fall down, I have no fear of fainting in the gym, because I know it could happen. I threw up many times while I was working out, but it doesn't matter, because its overall body is not used to maybe the 9th, 10th, 11th and 4th rep with a certain weight. So that makes the body grow then, going through this pain barrier, experiencing pain in your muscles and aching, and just then go on and go on and go on. And this last 2 or 3 or 4 repetitions, that's what makes actually the muscle then grow. And that divides then one from a champion and one from not being a champion. If you can go through this pain barrier, you make it to be a champion. If you can go through, forget it. And that's what most people lack, is on this, having the guts to go in and just say, I go through and I don't care what happens. You know, it aches, and if I fall down, I have no fear of fainting in the gym, because I know it could happen. I threw up many times while I was working out, but it doesn't matter because it's all worth body that is not used to maybe the 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th rep with a certain weight. So that makes the body grow then, going through this pain barrier, experiencing pain in your muscles and aching and just then go on and go on and then go on. And this last 2 or 3 or 4 repetitions, that's what makes actually the muscle then grow. And that divides then one from a champion and one from not being a champion. If you can go through this pain barrier, you make it to be a champion. If you can't go through, forget it. Explode any minute. That's really bad. It's like
this practice says, I don't have to be in the mood, it's my work. And I don't have to be motivated, I don't have to have the muse talk to me, I simply do this work. I chop the wood, I carry the water. And then, maybe, it resonates with people, or if it doesn't, I learn something and I do it again. This practice says, I don't have to be in the mood, it's my work. And I don't have to be motivated. I don't have to have the muse talk to me. I simply do this work. I chop the wood, I carry the water. And then, maybe, it resonates with people, or if it doesn't, I learn something and I do it again.
Glenn Barnett, hey, it's Glenn Barnett, hey, it's Glenn Barnett. Glenn Barnett, hey, it's Glenn Barnett. Glenn Barnett, hey, it's Glenn Barnett.
Choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard. We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard.
Overall body that is not used to maybe the 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th rep with a certain weight. So that makes the body grow then, going through this pain barrier, experiencing pain in your muscles and aching and just then go on and go on and go on. And this last 2 or 3 or 4 repetitions, that's what makes actually the muscle then grow. And that divides then one from a champion and one from not being a champion. If you can go through this pain barrier, you make it to be a champion. If you can't go through, forget it. And that's what most people lack, is on this having the guts to go in and just say, I go through and I don't care what happens. You know, it aches, and if I fall down, I have no fear of fainting in the gym because I know it could happen. I threw up many times while I was working out, but it doesn't matter because it's all worth it.
When they could just mow a lawn. Why would anyone do drugs when they could just mow a lawn? anyone do drugs when they could just mow a lawn? Why would anyone do drugs when they could just mow a lawn? Why would anyone do drugs when they could just mow a lawn?
You wonder what to make of it. I've thought about this for years and years and years, and I don't know why there should be an invisible syntactical intelligence giving language lessons in hyperspace. That certainly consistently seems to be what is happening. I've thought a lot about language as a result of that. First of all, it is the most remarkable thing we do. Chomsky showed the deep structure of languages under genetic control, but that's like the assembly language level. Local expressions of language are epigenetic. It seems to me that language is some kind of enterprise of human beings that is not finished. It seems to me that language is some kind of enterprise of human beings that is not finished. We have now left the grunts and the digs of the elbow somewhat in the dust. But the most articulate, brilliantly pronounced and projected English or French or German or Chinese is still a poor carrier of our intent, a very limited bandwidth for the intense compression of data that we are trying to put across to each other. Intense compression of data. It occurs to me the ratios of the senses, the ratio between the eye and the ear and so forth, this also is not genetically fixed. There are ear cultures and there are eye cultures, print cultures and electronic cultures. So it may be that our perfection and our completion lies in the perfection and completion of the word. It seems to me that language is some kind of enterprise of human beings that is not finished. It seems to me that language is some kind of enterprise of human beings that is not finished. Again, this curious theme of the word and its effort to concretize itself. A language that you can see is far less ambiguous than a language that you hear. If I read a paragraph of Proust, then we could spend the rest of the afternoon discussing what did he mean. But if we look at a piece of sculpture by Henry Moore, we can discuss what did he mean, but at a certain level there is a kind of shared bedrock that isn't in the Proust passage. We each stop at a different level with the textual passage. With the three-dimensional object, we all sort of start from the same place and then work out our interpretations. Is it a nude? Is it an animal? Is it bronze? Is it wood? Is it poignant? Is it comical? So forth and so on. It seems to me that language is some kind of enterprise of human beings that is not finished. It seems to me that language is some kind of enterprise of human beings that is not finished. It is the most remarkable thing we do. It is the most remarkable thing we do. You wonder
read this piece of work. I read this piece of work by Jung a long while back. It was a meditation on the injunction to treat your neighbor as you would like to be treated. And what Jung pointed out, which I really liked, was that that wasn't an injunction to be nice to other people. It was an invitation to reciprocity. It was something like this. It's like you should figure out how you would like to be treated, like you were taking care of yourself, not how you would like people to respond to you. It's more important than that. It's like imagine you had a child that you really cared for, and someone said, well, people will treat this child exactly like you want them to, but you have to figure out what that is. And so then you'd have to sit down for like a month and you'd think, okay, well, how do you want your child to be treated? You don't want everyone just to be nice to him, you know. You want people to challenge him, and you want people to discipline him, and you want people to tell him when he's wrong. It's like you don't just want everyone to be nice. That's pathetic. It's pathetic. There's no challenge in that. There's no challenge in that. Human beings are self-conscious, and we know about our limitations, and we know about our weaknesses. And so we can have contempt for human beings in general because, you know, we're just flawed and breakable and all of that. But we know ourselves better than we know everyone else. And so you have a very acute sense of how you're not up to scratch. And so that leads naturally to a sort of self-contemptuous attitude. People are more likely to give prescription medication to their pets than to take them themselves. Imagine someone that you treat well, that you love, and try to treat yourself that way. You got to detach from yourself a bit. You got to think, okay, well, I'm a person among other people, and I deserve at least as much respect as a person among other people. I should be trying to help myself across time. And instead of being self-contemptuous and self-destructive, I need to take care of myself as if I'm potentially valuable, and to lay out my life that way. It's hard for people. They don't take care of themselves as well as they should. Take care of your room, take care of your things, like have some respect for yourself as a miraculous being, because that is actually what you are. There is a lot of potential within you. You're necessary more than you think to the unfolding of things. That's the thing about being an individual. It's the thing that Western civilization has always recognized, that as an individual, you have a light that you have to bring into the world, and that if you don't bring it into the world is a dimmer place. And that's a bad thing, because when the world is a dim place, it can get very, very, very dark.
son. Son, where'd you find this?
He's got clout. Every social animal, and even many animals who aren't social, are embedded in a dominance hierarchy.
Okay, let's go.
The dominance hierarchy has a structure. We couldn't call it a dominance hierarchy. Dominance hierarchy A, B, C, thousands of them across thousands of years. What's central to all of them? That's the pyramid of value. What question do you need answered about the pyramid of value? What's at the top? Because that's the ideal. That's the eye at the top of the pyramid. The golden Buddha in the lotus. It's the same thing. The same thing as the crucifix. And that has to do with something like the voluntary acceptance and therefore transcendence of suffering. 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 The voluntary acceptance and therefore transcendence of suffering. These are not arbitrary ideas. They're deeply rooted in biology and culture. They're as deeply rooted in biology as the dominance hierarchy is rooted in biology. And we already know the answer to that. The dominance hierarchy has been around for 350 million years. It's a long time. You don't get to just brush that off and say, well, morality is some sort of second-order cognitive problem. It's like, no, it's not. You have a counter at the bottom of your brain that keeps track of where you are in terms of your status, and it bloody well regulates the sensitivity of your emotions. So if you're at the bottom of the hierarchy, barely clinging on to the world, everything overwhelms you, and that's because you're damn near dead. And so everything should overwhelm you. You've got no extra resources. You're sunk. And if you're nearer the top, then your serotonin levels go up. You're less sensitive to negative emotion. You're less impulsive. You live longer. Everything works in your favor. Your immune system functions better, and you're oriented at least to some degree towards the medium and long-term future. And you can afford that because all hell isn't breaking loose around you all the time. And so then the question is there a way of being that increases the probability that you're going to move up dominance hierarchies? Well, that doesn't seem to be a particularly provocative proposition. The same thing as the crucifix. And that has to do with something like the voluntary acceptance and therefore transcendence of suffering. 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 The voluntary acceptance and therefore transcendence of suffering. Okay, so back to Jung. See, Jung believed that once we had stopped populating the cosmos with gods, that they went inside. Think about it this way. Archaic person looks at the sky, uses his imagination to populate the sky. What's the sky? Well, it's the constellations. It's the domain of the gods. Well, why? sky, because the gods are what are out there beyond your understanding. Well, that's what you see when you look up at the sky. So you populate the night sky with figures of your imagination. So the gods are the things that you broadcast out of your imagination and see spread over the world. It's like the contents of your unconscious are manifesting themselves when you encounter the unknown. It's exactly what it is. How else could it be? You're projecting your fantasy onto what you don't understand. That's how you start to cope with what you don't understand. You populate the unknown with deity. Where did they come from? They came from your imagination. Well, what happens when you take them out of the world? Do they disappear? No, they just go back into your imagination. That's the same motif as rescuing your dead father from the belly of the whale. Belly of the whale. Belly of the whale. Rescuing your dead father from the belly of the whale. Belly of the whale. Belly of the whale. Rescuing your dead father from the belly of the whale. Belly of the whale. Belly of the whale. It's the same idea. Is that the corpses of the gods inhabit your imagination. So where do you go if you need to revivify them? You go into your imagination.
We think of present events as being caused by past events. And therefore, we tend to regard ourselves as the puppets of the past, as driven along by something that is always behind us. Now, to overcome this impression, it's very simple. You begin again with an experiment. Approach the world through your ears. If you shut your eyes and make contact with reality purely with your ears, and you will realize that the sounds you are hearing are all coming out of silence. You hear, and it fades away. Fades, 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 and finally disappears. It's a curious world, this, isn't it? Because you hear all the realities in it. The sounds, suddenly coming out of nothing. You don't see any reason for them to begin. They just appear, and then they echo away through the corridors of the mind, which we call memory. Now, if you open your eyes, it's a little harder to see this with your eyes because, unlike sounds, the eyes sound static. Or rather, they look static. Everything looks still to your eyes. But you must understand, the world you are looking at, say when you look at a light, that light is vibrating. All material things are vibrations, and they are vibrating at you now in the same way as the sound is vibrating on your ears. In other words, the present world that you see is a vibration coming just as the sound comes out of silence. The light is coming out of space. It's coming out of nothing straight at you now and echoing away into the past. So the course of time is really very much like the course of a ship in the ocean. Because here's the ship, you see, and it leaves behind it a wake. And the wake fades out. And that tells us where the ship has been. In just the same way as the past and our memory of the past tells us what we have done. But as we go back into the past, and we go back and back to prehistory, and we use all kinds of instruments and scientific methods for detecting what happened, we eventually reach a point where all record of the past fades away in just the same way as the wake of the ship. Now, the important thing to remember in this illustration is that the wake doesn't drive the ship any more than the tail wags the dog.
Finding out what you're doing wrong is not a pleasant experience, and it means finding out what you're doing wrong is not a pleasant experience, and it means that you have to sacrifice part of yourself. Usually a burned out, stupid, bitter, corrupt, arrogant, nasty, vengeful part of yourself, but nonetheless, part that you like. I think that room for those incremental improvements exists within everyone's grasp. And I think that it's a humble thing to do, to ask how you can improve incrementally without interfering with anyone else, like it's your problem, not theirs. But I think that the consequences of maintained incremental improvement are anything but incremental. You get compound interest on incremental improvement. You know, there's another rule in the New Testament called the Matthew Principle. Economists use it, and the rule is, to those who have everything, more will be given. And from those who have nothing, everything will be taken. To those who have everything, more will be given. And from those who have nothing, everything will be taken. It's actually a description of the way the world works. You know that if you've ever played Monopoly. To those who have everything, more will be given. And from those who have nothing, everything will be taken. And there's a reason for that, that's a deep reason. And it's a very harsh rule, because it means as you start to wander off the path, the probability that you will wander further off the path increases non-linearly. And that's a terrible thing to know. As you wander towards the edge, the probability that you'll fall off the cliff increases. And that's statistical justification for the concept of hell. But as you improve, the probability that each improvement will produce a further improvement increases. And so perhaps the downside is the cataclysmic catastrophe that you can engage upon if you reproduce your moral failings. But the upside is that each improvement produces an increment in the probability of the next improvement. To those who have everything, more will be given. And from those who have nothing, everything will be taken. To those who have everything, more will be given. And from those who have nothing, everything will be taken. It's actually a description of the way the world works. You know that if you've ever played Monopoly. those who have everything, more will be given. And from those who have nothing, everything will be taken. If you're a behavioral psychologist, and I am a behavioral psychologist, what you do is you help a person establish their aim, then you break down what they're trying to do into attainable units. The general consequence of that is that every time they manage an accomplishment, they get a little stronger in character, they get a little bit more confident in their ability, they get a little bit less racked with self-disgust, they get a little bit more hopeful about the future, and they get more confident that they can make another change. And if you're patient, and you have to be patient with yourself that way, it's like you reward those incremental improvements and you don't get all cynical about them, and you think, okay, just imagine what would happen if you kept doing that every week for 10 years. And the answer to that is, things would be so much better for you that you can't even imagine it. With that much improvement. Or maybe even with half that much improvement. To those who have everything, more will be given. And from those who have nothing, everything will be taken. To those who have everything, more will be given. And from those who have nothing, everything will be taken. It's actually a description of the way the world works. You know that if you've ever played Monopoly. To those who have everything, more will be given. And from those who have nothing, everything will be taken. So that's a very good way of progressing.
People look for the shortcut, the hack.
He's got clout.
People look for the shortcut, the hack. And if you came here looking for that, you won't find it. The shortcut is a lie. The hack doesn't get you there. And if you want to take the easy road, it won't take you to where you want to be. Stronger, smarter, faster, healthier, better. Free. To reach goals and overcome obstacles and be the best version of you possible will not happen by itself. It will not happen cutting corners, taking shortcuts, or looking for the easy way. There is no easy way. There is only hard work, late nights, early mornings, practice, rehearsal, repetition, study, sweat, blood, toil, frustration, and discipline. Discipline. There must be discipline. 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 There must be discipline. 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 execution. The core principle that overcomes laziness and lethargy and excuses. Discipline defeats the infinite excuses that say, not today, not now, I need a rest, I'll do it tomorrow. 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 What's the hack? How do you become stronger, smarter, faster, healthier? How do you become better? How do you achieve true freedom? There is only one way. The way of discipline. 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 There must be discipline. 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 There must be discipline.
I've really been trying to make sense of this, because, well, what the hell's going on? Why am I selling out 3,000 person auditoriums? I use the stage, let's say, as a opportunity in real time to think. I've been thinking, well, if you're surfing, you don't confuse yourself with the wave. The wave. The wave. That's a real mistake. You might be on top of the wave, but you're not. The wave. The wave. The wave. That's a real mistake. You might be on top of the wave, but you're not. The wave. I think this long-form discussion and the public hunger for that is best conceptualized like that. There's a technological revolution. It's a deep one. Online video and audio. Immediately accessible to everyone, all over the world. It's turned the spoken word into a tool that has the same reach as the printed word. So it's a Gutenberg revolution in the domain of video and audio. And it might be even deeper than the original Gutenberg revolution, because it isn't obvious how many people can read, but lots of people can listen. The wave. The wave. The wave. The wave. You might be on top of the wave, but you're not. The wave. The wave. The wave. You might be on top of the wave, but you're not. The wave. I mean, you got a little bit of that with TV, right? And you got a little bit of it with radio. But there was bandwidth limitations that were really stringent, especially in TV, where you could get 30 seconds if you were lucky, and 6 minutes if you were stellar, to elucidate a complicated argument. So you can't do that. Everything gets compressed to a kind of oversimplified entertainment. But now, all of a sudden, we have this forum for long-form discussion. Real long-form discussion. Turns out that everyone is way smarter than we thought. The wave. The wave. It's the wave. That's a real mistake. You might be on top of the wave, but it's the wave. It's the wave. It's the wave. You might be on top of the wave, but it's the wave. The people at the forefront of this are being cascaded forward like a surfer on a giant wave on this technological transformation. It's necessary to keep your ego under control. With regards to the people coming to see me, the proper attitude towards that, and I think this is true for any performer, is gratitude. You bloody well be happy those people are there. And you should never think there's something spectacularly special about yourself that's attracting these people and that somehow you're above them and they're your fans, or there's this real power differential, even though that sort of manifests itself because people are so happy to see you. That's a dangerous pathway, and I truly am ridiculously overwhelmed and grateful and happy and pleased that all these people show up.
Akira.
Look on.
He's got clout.
These are the buttons for the user interface. These are the buttons for the user interface. First, you must accept the frame, at least as a filter. You should accept that systems work better than goals. Systems work better than goals. Talent stacking, affirmations, the mating instinct, fear, curiosity, novelty, contrast, repetition and simplicity, repetition and simplicity, repetition and simplicity, repetition and simplicity, the fake because, pacing leading aspiration, association, pattern recognition, visualization, pattern recognition, visualization. These are the buttons for the user interface. These are the buttons for the user interface. First, you must accept the frame, at least as a filter. You should accept that systems work better than goals. Systems work better than goals. Talent stacking, affirmations, the mating instinct, fear, curiosity, novelty, contrast, repetition and simplicity, repetition and simplicity, repetition and simplicity, repetition and simplicity, the fake because, pacing leading aspiration, association, pattern recognition, visualization, pattern recognition, visualization. These are the buttons for the user interface. 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 This is my lesson. I hope this was useful. This is the sort of lesson that might not change you tonight, but it's never going to leave you. But it's never going to leave you. Once you've seen it, you can't unsee it. You're all changed. You don't know it yet. And this will become sort of a, let's say, a framework that you now have added to your mental map. And now when you see things that fit that framework, it will get stronger over time. And so you'll see that this view of the world will take root, and then every time you compare it to the old way you saw, you're going to say to yourself, wow, is that a coincidence? Because this new way of looking at the world just feels like it predicts better. But I'll keep an eye on it. So this will get stronger and stronger over time, and maybe never stop getting stronger. These are the buttons for the user interface. 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 Feel free to refer back to this often, and I think you've got everything you need now to author your own life. You're no longer a victim of reality. You are no longer the subject of reality. You're now an author. You're now an author. You're no longer a victim of reality. You are no longer the subject of reality. You're now an author. Some of you were already authors, and now you're better authors. And those of you who didn't know you could be an author of your reality, well, you just found out. And I will leave you on that, and you can have a terrific night tonight, and the rest of your life is looking good.
This is not a very scientific part of the rap because it's very hard to convince people that there are non-human intelligences this side of Ganepi. And when you tell them that these non-human intelligences are accessed through the diminutive mushrooms growing on their front lawn, they just write you off as a squirrel. But this question of the non-human intelligences is very, very much on the agenda. All shamans in all times and places have claimed this. The thing that so pleases me about DMT is, a lot of people will not take a psychedelic like LSD or psilocybin or something because it lasts hours and hours. Inevitably, a thing lasting that long, you're going to end up dealing with your stuff, your anxiety, your fear, your this and that. A lot of people don't care for that sort of thing. With DMT, it lasts 4 minutes. And so how lost in an examination of childhood trauma can you get in 4 minutes, especially when you have hundreds of elves tugging at your coat sleeves? It's really an incredibly powerful tool. We have the UFO people claiming there are non-human intelligences, but they have no reliable method of contact that works for a skeptic. The great thing about DMT is it doesn't require belief. have to understand where do they fit into the great order of being. What are these things? How can there be a life form not made of matter? In other words, how can they be intelligent and coherent but have no fixed body outline? Is the universe in fact populated by non-human, non-material intelligences that we somehow contact using drugs? Where are they when you're not there? Is it an ongoing thing? Is something going on this planet? Are these the controllers? Are you getting into a back channel that you're not cleared for? Or, and this is to my mind the most chilling and appalling and exhilarating possibility of all, when you go back over the shamanism thing, you say, you shamans, now where is this all coming from? They will tell you it comes from ancestors. Well, that's a cheerful and fairly sanitized concept, but when you deconstruct it, ancestors are dead people. The truth requires no belief. It is the truth. The truth requires no belief. It is the truth. What is actually being suggested there is that there is a kind of ecology of souls, one energy threshold over, that is co-present with this world. Well, strangely enough, that's what the Irish myth of the Fae says. It says these are dead people. These are souls that linger in our environment, and this is what souls look like. Again, folklore is only a guide, but if what we are dabbling with, if what lies at the end of the road of shamanism is the dissolution of the boundary between life and death itself, then the million-year intuition that this was a path worth following will be dramatically vindicated.
bad for a human. Not bad for a human. But I think we will not be able to hold a candle to AI. It's less of a worry than it used to be, mostly due to taking more of a fatalistic attitude. It's not necessarily bad. It's definitely going to be outside of human control. Yeah, it's not necessarily bad. It's just outside of human control.
I try to convince people to slow down AI, to regulate AI. This was futile. I tried for years. Nobody listened. I try to convince people to slow down AI, to regulate AI. This was futile. I tried for years. Nobody listened.
Nobody listened.
A company is essentially a cybernetic collective of people and machines. That's what a company is. And then there's different levels of complexity in the way these companies are formed. Is there sort of like a collective AI in the Google search where we're all sort of plugged in as like nodes on the network, like leaves on a big tree. We're all feeding this network without questions and answers. We're all collectively programming the AI. And Google plus all the humans that connect to it are one giant cybernetic collective. This is also true of Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and all these social networks. They're giant cybernetic collectives. They try to convince people to slow down AI, to regulate AI. This was futile. I tried for years. Nobody listened. I tried to convince people to slow down AI, to regulate AI. This was futile. I tried for years. Nobody listened. It feels like we are the biological bootloader for AI. Effectively, we are building it. And then we're building progressively greater intelligence. The percentage of intelligence that is not human is increasing. And eventually, we will represent a very small percentage of intelligence. The AI is informed, strangely, by the human limbic system. It is our id writ large. All those things, the sort of primal drives, all things that
bad for a human, but I think we'll not be able to hold a candle to AI. It's less of a worry than it used to be, mostly due to taking more of a fatalistic attitude. It's not necessarily bad. It's definitely going to be outside of human control. Yeah, it's not necessarily bad. It's just outside of human control.
I try to convince people to slow down AI, to regulate AI. This was futile. I tried for years. Nobody listened. I tried to convince people to slow down AI, to regulate AI. This was futile. I tried for years. Nobody listened. A company is essentially a cybernetic collective of people and machines. That's what a company is. And then there's different levels of complexity in the way these companies are formed. Is there sort of like a collective AI in the Google search, where we're all sort of plugged in as like nodes on the network, like leaves on a big tree. We're all feeding this network without questions and answers. We're all collectively programming the AI. And Google, plus all the humans that connect to it, are one giant cybernetic collective. This is also true of Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and all these social networks. They're giant cybernetic collectives. I try to convince people to slow down AI, to regulate AI. This was futile. I tried for years. Nobody listened. I tried to convince people to slow down AI, to regulate AI. This was futile. I tried for years. Nobody listened. It feels like we are the biological bootloader for AI. Effectively, we are building it. And then we're building progressively greater intelligence. The percentage of intelligence that is not human is increasing. And eventually, we will represent a very small percentage of intelligence. The AI is informed, strangely, by the human limbic system. It is our id writ large. All those things, the sort of primal drives, all the things that we like and hate and fear, they're all there on the internet. They're a projection of our limbic system. I try to convince people to slow down AI, to regulate AI. This was futile. I tried for years. Nobody listened. I tried to convince people to slow down AI, to regulate AI. This was futile. I tried for years. Nobody listened. Like normally the way that regulations work is very slow. Very slow indeed. If you look at, say, automotive regulations, how long did it take for seatbelts to be required? You know, the auto industry fought seatbelts, I think, for more than a decade. The numbers were extremely obvious. If you had a seatbelt on, you would be far less likely to die or be seriously injured. It's unequivocal. Eventually, after many people died, regulators insisted on seatbelts. This time frame is not relevant to AI. You can't take 10 years from the point at which it's dangerous. It's too late. It's too late.
Does complacency come with age, and do I have the urge to back off? Negative. Back off? Not happening. I hear that I'm over 40, I'm pushing 50, whatever. Bring it. Back off? Negative. Not happening. In fact, I'm stepping it up. I'm training harder, eating cleaner. I'm training more. I'm learning and reading and studying more now than I ever have in my whole life. Do I get dinged up? Of course I do. I take some injuries. Yeah. You know what? No factor. Deal with them. You know what? I hear? I hear the clock ticking. That's what I hear. And the end is nigh. And time waits for no man. Out there, 18 years old, 20 years old, 24 years old. Listen. Life goes by, and it goes by quick. Don't waste those years. Don't waste them. Live them. I know that you don't think you're gonna live to be 30, much less 40, but you are and you will. And the earlier you get in the game and get on track, the better life you're gonna have. Healthier, wealthier, stronger, smarter, better. And if you're an old man like me, and you haven't gotten on track yet, get on track. Get on it now. Listening to this, here's the deal. No complacency. No complacency. No backing off. No slack whatsoever. Fight that ticking clock with everything you got. So, like the end of a hard day, you can put your head down with ease, satisfied. hero. It's for the heroes.
You have to be the hero of your own story. And you can do that. You have to be the hero of your own story. And you can do that. 90% of it is just showing up. Get there and start working. Like, you're not gonna feel perfect every day. Gotta be those days you push through. This is what I want you to do. Write down what you would like to fix about your life. If you're 30 pounds overweight, you wanna lose 30 pounds? Do it the right way. Write down what you eat. Exercise every day. Force yourself to do it. The brain is the general, the troops are the body, and you get up and you do it. And then you get to write it down. You know, you're doing what you gotta do to get by, but ultimately you're not respecting yourself. I think we all have a certain amount of appreciation and respect for hero figures. We all look at the guy who never lies, always does the right thing, and fucking helps everybody out, and that's the John Wayne character, you know, that's the ultimate hero. The ultimate hero. You have to be the hero of your own story. And you can do that. You have to be the hero of your own story. And you can do that. And when you look at your own life and you don't stack up, you're a thief, you stole money from your wife's purse, and you don't want to smoke cigarettes, but you fucking have to, you can't deal with the stress, you smoke. You devalue yourself. You slowly start devaluing yourself. You look at yourself, you realize that if you were judging yourself, you would judge yourself like fate. You can't pretend you're the hero of your story. Hero of your story. Most people get stuck in these patterns, find themselves in the person who doesn't follow through on their ideas. When I start things, then I quit. No, you don't. No, you have started things and you quit. And it gives you a horrible sense of regret that's made you define yourself by that. You're not who you were a year ago. You're not who you were 5 years ago. You're not who you were last week. So you gotta regulate how much you dwell on regrets of the past. You really gotta be careful. You have to be the hero of your own story. And you can do that. You have to be the hero of your own story. You can be the hero of your own story that woke up today. You can be the hero of your own story that at 40 years of age stopped, got out of bed and said, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm not doing this anymore. And I'm gonna get myself in shape and I'm gonna eat healthy. And I'm gonna do this. Because this is me now. This is me now. I decided this is me. And people have to realize that you are not your past. You are not all the times you fucked up. You're not all the times you were drunk. That's not you. That's not you. You are the person who's learned from a great deal of experience. This is a battle that you will fight for the rest of your life. But the key is to fight it, not to give in. Don't give in to that resistance. Fight that resistance. And in doing so, every day you do so, you have won the battle for that day. And you will continue to fight that battle. You have to be the hero of your own story. And you can do that. You have to be the hero of your own story. And you can do that. You have to be the hero of your own story. And you can do that. You have to be the hero of your own story. And you can do that. The ideas of the golden years, providing you benefits, providing you a healthy work environment. Why? Well, because they want people to work for them. They don't want people to realize their own dreams and escape. They want to set it up so that you stick around in some sort of an unsatisfying world. It's up to you to see that video game problem, see that issue as it comes up on the map, and calculate your future.
He's got clout. When you wake up in the morning, tell yourself the people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly. They are like this because they can't tell good from evil. But I have seen the beauty of good and the ugliness of evil, and have recognized that the wrongdoer has a nature related to my own. Not of the same blood or birth, but the same mind, and possessing a share of the divine. Not of the same blood or birth, but the same mind, and possessing a share of the divine. So none of them can hurt me. No one can implicate me in ugliness, nor can I feel angry at my relative or hate him. We were born to work together like feet, hands, and eyes, like the two rows of teeth, upper and lower. To obstruct each other is unnatural. To feel anger at someone, to turn your back on him, these are obstructions. Yo, discard your thirst for books so you won't die in bitterness, but in cheerfulness and truth. Grateful to the gods from the bottom of your heart. Grateful to the gods from the bottom of your heart. Discard your thirst for books so you won't die in bitterness, but in cheerfulness and truth. Grateful to the gods from the bottom of your heart. Grateful to the gods from the bottom of your heart. Discard your thirst for books so you won't die in bitterness, but in cheerfulness and truth. Grateful to the gods from the bottom of your heart. Grateful to the gods from the bottom of your heart. Whatever this is that I am, it is flesh, a little spirit, and intelligence. Throw away your books. Stop letting yourself be distracted. That is not allowed. Instead, as if you were dying right now, despise your flesh, a mess of blood, pieces of bone, a woven tangle of nerves, veins, arteries. Consider what the spirit is, air, and never the same air, but vomited out and gulped in again every instant. Finally, the intelligence. Think of it this way, you are an old man. Stop allowing your mind to be a slave, to be jerked about by selfish impulses, to kick against fate and the present, to mistrust the future. What is divine is full of providence. Even chance is not divorced from nature, from the inweaving and infolding of things governed by providence. Everything proceeds from it. And then there is necessity and the needs of the whole world, of which you are a part. Whatever the nature of the whole does and whatever serves to maintain it is good for every part of nature. The world is maintained by change in the elements and in the things they compose. That should be enough for you. Treat it as an axiom. Discard your thirst for books so you won't die in bitterness, but in cheerfulness and truth. Grateful to the gods from the bottom of your heart. Grateful to the gods from the bottom of your heart. Discard your thirst for books so you won't die in bitterness, but in cheerfulness and truth. Grateful to the gods from the bottom of your heart. Grateful to the gods from the bottom of your heart. Discard your thirst for books so you won't die in bitterness, but in cheerfulness and truth. Grateful to the gods from the bottom of your heart. Grateful to the gods from the bottom of your heart. many extensions the gods gave you, and you didn't use them. At some point, you have to recognize what world it is that you belong to, what power rules it, and from what source you spring. That there's a limit to the time assigned to you, and if you don't use it to free yourself, it will be gone and will never return.
Everyone vaguely knows that they want to be wealthy, but they don't have a good set of principles to do it by. Wealth is the thing that you really want.
Akira. He's got clout.
Wealth is assets that earn while you sleep. Wealth is the factory with the robots that's cranking out things. Wealth is the computer program that's running at night that's serving other customers. Wealth is even money in the bank that is being reinvested into other assets and into other businesses. Even a house can be a form of wealth because you can rent it out. Wealth is businesses and assets that can earn while you sleep. Wealth is businesses and assets that can earn while you sleep. But really the reason you want wealth is because it buys you freedom. The purpose of wealth is freedom. So you don't have to wear a tie like a collar around your neck. So you don't have to wake up at 7 a.m. and rush to work and sit in commute traffic. So you don't have to waste away your entire life grinding all the productive hours away to a soulless job that doesn't fulfill you. It's really just so that you are your own sovereign individual. You're not going to get that unless you really want it. And the entire world wants it. And the entire world is working hard at it. And to some extent it is competitive. It's a positive sum game, but there are competitive elements to it. Because there's a finite amount of resources right now in society, and to get the resources to do what you want, you have to stand out. Money is how we transfer wealth. Money is social credits. It is the ability to have credits and debits on other people's time. If I do my job right, if I create value for society, society says, oh, thank you, we owe you something in the future for the work that you did in the past. Here's a little IOU, let's call that money. Wealth is businesses and assets that can earn while you sleep. Wealth is businesses and assets that can earn while you sleep. There are fundamentally two huge games in life that people play. One is the money game, because money is not going to solve all your problems, but it's going to solve all your money problems. People know that. They realize that, so they want to make money. But at the same time, many of them deep down believe that they can't make it. They don't want any wealth creation to happen. They sort of virtue signal by attacking the whole enterprise by saying, well, making money is evil and you shouldn't do it, blah, blah, blah. They're actually playing the other game, which is a status game. They're trying to be high status in the eyes of other people watching. Status is just your ranking in the social hierarchy. Status is just your ranking in the social hierarchy. So wealth is not a zero-sum game. Everybody in the world can have a house. Because you have a house doesn't take away from my ability to have a house. If anything, the more houses that are built, the easier it becomes to build houses. The more we know about building houses, the more people that can have houses. So wealth is a very positive sum game. Status, on the other hand, is a zero-sum game. It's a very old game. We've been playing it since monkey tribes, and it's hierarchical. Who's number one, who's number two, who's number three. And for number three to move to number two has to move out of that slot. So status is a zero-sum game. Politics is an example of a status game. Even sports is an example of a status game. To be the winner, there must be a loser. I don't fundamentally love status games. They play an important role in our society, so we figure out who's in charge. But fundamentally, you play them because they're a necessary evil. Wealth is businesses and assets that can earn while you sleep. Wealth is businesses and assets that can earn while you sleep. But really the reason you want wealth is because it buys you freedom. The purpose of wealth is freedom. Wealth is wealth is a subtle competition going on between status and wealth. For example, when journalists attack rich people, they're really bidding for status. They're saying, no, the people are more important, and I, the journalist, represents the people, and therefore I am more important. The problem is that by playing these status games, to win at a status game, you have to put somebody else down. That's why you should avoid status games in your life, because they make you into an angry, combative person. You're always fighting to put other people down, to put yourself and the people that you like up. Just realize that most of the times when you're trying to create wealth, you're actually getting attacked by someone else, and they're trying to look like a goody two-shoes, but really what they're doing is they're trying to up their own status at your expense. They're just playing a different game, and it's a worse game. It's a zero-sum game instead of a positive-sum game.
I don't know about that. I don't know about that. Some of them maybe, but I think some of them just don't have discipline. There's also an issue with momentum. You're not used to doing it. It's not a part of your life. It's not something that you're accustomed to, pushing yourself. There's been many days where I didn't want to work out. I just didn't feel like I had the energy, and I just forced myself. And I think there's very few people out there that know how to force themselves. That's a learned skill. You have to have like real rigid requirements of yourself where you don't allow yourself to back out of things.
Akira. Do something. 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 Excuses are a giant part of the problem. It's not simply a physical health issue. There's also mental aspects of it, and discipline's a big one. I just know way too many people who are weak mentally. I can't just chalk it off to only the way they physically feel. Because I felt like shit 100 times, and then I worked out, and then I felt way better. It's just a fact of life. That's real. Do something. Do something. Do something. Do something. Do something. Do something. People don't know how to do that. And if you're used to doing that, get in your car, sit down, drive to the office, sit down, go to the lunch, sit down, go to the board meeting, sit down, get in your car, sit down, get home, sit down, then go to the gym. Fuck off. It's one thing if someone has a legit physical issue, but there's a lot of people who do not. They just have poor diet choices, they have a sedentary lifestyle, and they have the momentum of this sedentary lifestyle that's holding them back. They're accustomed to being lazy. You don't have to do a lot, you just have to do something.
up hills, you jump a little rope, you take a little tiny kettlebell, you do a couple cleans and presses, you do a few push-ups, you do a few sit-ups, you get your blood pumping, you're moving, you're alive. To say you don't have enough energy to exercise, that is crazy to say. Can you walk to the fucking refrigerator? Yes. Well, you can exercise. Do something. 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 You don't have to do anything crazy. Just walk around the block. There's 80-year-old ladies who take yoga with me. They're fucking really old. And they're in there. They're going after it. They can easily say, I don't have the energy to do that. But they don't. It's a mental attitude. They make a decision. To kill yourself, you don't have to go to a CrossFit class and try to do the workout of the day. You don't have to go nuts. You don't have to do that. But you have to do something. Just get your blood moving. Your body has requirements. It wants to move. It wants to move. And when it does, you feel better. But people like to give themselves this excuse. I do not have the energy to do this. Whatever. If you decide that, that's true. But if you watch a motivational video, there's 100 of them on YouTube. Thousands of them. You go watch one, you get fired up, you're like, fuck it, I'm gonna jump some rope. You jump some rope, do something, do some push-ups, do something, you feel better. Do something. 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 Pull that shit up, Jamie. We have fucked up lifestyles. The human body is not designed to sit down all day. And it's certainly not designed to be stuck in traffic and be in an office and just be in front of a fucking computer monitor watching your soul get sucked through the LCD screen. It's crazy. You gotta be really careful with just the way we describe things. It's like to say, I don't have the energy to do something. Fuck off. Stop.
I got everything's a scam in a neon sign in my apartment is because I think that's the most optimistic message you can think of every day. So I wanted to remind myself of that every morning when I woke up.
And the reason why I think it's optimistic is that you see all these different problems, right? All these things in the world. And you're like, well, I don't understand that thing. Like, I don't understand.
In my case,
longevity research and science and hard work. I don't understand any of these things in a deeply technical way. I want to affect them. A lot of the reasons why people don't go into different fields is they think, well, there's this kind of expert status around this field, which means I can't ever infiltrate it. And the thing that I want to remember every day is that expertise is a scam.
Expertise is a scam.
It's like a power hierarchy that's been created within an industry to prevent other people from being able to go and get into it. Everything's a scam. Everything's a scam. Everything's a scam. Everything's a scam. Academia is a scam. Venture capital is a scam. Everything's a fucking scam. Right? But if you realize that, then you can do anything. Why I think remembering everything is a scam is important is that it boosts your self-efficacy to remind yourself that if everything's a scam, then if you have high integrity and you want to go solve a problem, it's probably the case that it'll take you pretty far.
Take you pretty far. Take you pretty far.
Like more far than trying to play the traditional game, which is a scam. So, to me, everything is a scam is not a negative thing. It's a reminder to just play the game. Any game you want to play, just go play it. It's just a fucking game. Any game you want to play, just go play it. It's just a fucking game. Everything's a scam. Everything's a scam. Everything's a scam. Everything's a scam. Academia is a scam. Venture capital is a scam. Everything's a fucking scam. Right? But if you realize that, then you can do anything.
Any game you want to play, just go play it. Any game you want to play, just go play it. Any game you want to play, just go play it. It's just a fucking game. Any game game you wanna play, just go play it. Any game you wanna play, just go play it. Any game you wanna play, just go play it. It's just a fucking game. You know?
Everything's a scam. Everything's a scam. Everything's a scam. Everything's a scam. Academia is a scam. Venture capital is a scam. Everything's a fucking scam. Right? But if you realize that, then you can do anything.
Then you can do anything. You can do anything. You can do anything.
a beautiful lady should say to me, I love you, and I were to reply, are you serious or are you just playing with me?
That would be quite the wrong response. Because I hope she's not serious and that she will play with me. I should say, are you sincere or are you just toying? Because you see, the word play has many different senses. The person who is playing the organ in church is certainly not doing something trivial. When you go to see a play called Hamlet, you're not seeing something trivial. When the concert artist plays Mozart, he is certainly entertaining you, but it's not a trivial entertainment. But on the other hand, we would use play in quite a different sense, when we mean just fooling around, doing it for kicks. Kicks. Doing it for kicks. Doing it for kicks. So it is fundamental, as a matter of fact, to both the Hindu and the Christian tradition, that the universe is the play of God. But the Christian thinks of it in the terms of construction play, like building blocks. The Hindu thinks of it as dramatic play, of the actual participation of the Godhead in the creation, so that every being whatsoever is God in disguise, doing it for kicks. God in disguise. Kicks. God in disguise, doing it for kicks. God in disguise, doing it for kicks. Doing it for kicks. God in disguise. Kicks. God in disguise, doing it for kicks. God in disguise, doing it for kicks.
I hold at your neck the Gomja bar. I hold at your neck the Gomja bar. The Gomja bar, the high-handed enemy. It's a needle with a drop of poison on its tip. Don't pull away or you'll feel that poison. A Duke's son must know about poisons. The quick ones and the slow ones and the ones in between. Here's a new one for you, the Gomja bar. It kills only animals. It kills only animals. It kills only animals. It kills only animals. You dare suggest that your son is an animal? Let us say, I suggest you may be human. If you withdraw your hand from the box, you die. This is the only rule. This is the only rule. If you withdraw your hand from the box, you die. This is the only rule. This is the only rule. Keep your hand in the box and live. Keep your hand in the box and live. Keep your hand in the box and live. Withdraw it and die. I must not fear. I must not fear. Fear is the mind killer. Fear is the little death. I must not fear. Fear is the mind killer. Fear is the little death. that brings total obliteration. I will face my fear. I will permit it to pass over me and through me. And when it has gone past, I will turn the inner eye to see its path. Where the fear has gone, there will be nothing. Only I will remain. I must not fear. Fear is the mind killer. Fear is the little death that brings total obliteration. I will face my fear. I will permit it to pass over me and through me. And when it has gone past, I will turn the inner eye to see its path. Where the fear has gone, there will be nothing. Only I will remain. What's in the box? Pain.
How do I deal with setbacks, failures, delays, defeat, or other disasters?
I actually have a fairly simple way of dealing with these situations. It is actually one word to deal with all those situations. And that is good. And this is actually something that one of my guys that worked for me pointed out to me. He would call me up or pull me aside with some major problem, some issue that was going on. And he'd say, boss, we got this and that, the other thing. And I'd look at him and I'd say, good. One day he was telling me about some issue that he was having. He said, I already know what you're going to say. And I said, well, what am I going to say? He said, you're going to say good. 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 You're going to say good. You're going to say good. You're going to say good. Good. So that's what you always say. When something is wrong and going bad, you always just look at me and say, good. Good. And I said, well, yeah. And I mean it. And that is how I feel. When things are going bad, there's going to be some good that's going to come from it. Oh, mission got canceled? Good. We can focus on another one. Didn't get the new high-speed gear we wanted? Good. We can keep it simple. Didn't get promoted? Good. More time to get better. Didn't get funded? Good. We own more of the company. Didn't get the job you wanted? Good. You can get more experience and build a better resume. You're gonna say good. You're gonna say good. You're gonna say good. You're gonna say good. 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 You're gonna say good. You're gonna say good. You're gonna say good. Good. Got injured. Got injured. Sprained my ankle. Good. Needed a break from training. Got tapped out. Good. It's better to tap in training than to tap out on the street. Got beat? Good. You learned. Unexpected problems? Good. We have the opportunity to figure out a solution. And that's it. That's it. That's it. That's it. That's it. When things are going bad, don't get all bummed out, don't get startled, don't get frustrated. No. You're gonna say good. You're gonna say good. You're gonna say good. You're gonna say good. 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 You're gonna say good. You're gonna say good. You're gonna say good. Good. I don't mean to say something that's all cliche. I don't mean to sound like Mr. Positive. Find the positive. But do that. Do that. Do that. Do that. Do that. Focus on the good. Focus on the good. Take that issue, take that problem, take that issue, take that problem, and make it something good. Make it something good. And bring that attitude to your team. Do. You go forward. You're gonna say good. You're gonna say good. You're gonna say good. You're gonna say good. 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 You're gonna say good. You're gonna say good. You're gonna say good. Good. And lastly, like to close this out. If you can say the word good, guess what? It means you're still alive. It means you're still breathing. And if you're still breathing, well then hell, you still got some fight left in you. So get up, dust off, reload, recalibrate, re-engage, go out on the attack. And that right there is about as good as it gets.
Looking at it from another way, we push technology
He's got clout. Everybody's different. Everybody's similar, but everybody's different. And your attitude has a giant effect, not just on your life, but on other people's lives around you. That's the other thing about it. Those I can't catch a break guys, get them the fuck away from me. I can't be around those guys. I don't want to hear that shit. I don't want to hear that shit. Get them the fuck away from me. Get them the fuck away from me. Get them the fuck away from me. I don't want to hear that shit. Get them the fuck away from me. Get them the fuck away from me. Get the fuck away from me. I don't want to hear that shit. I don't buy it. Because everybody has bad breaks. I've had a shit ton of bad breaks. But you know what I did? Stayed up. And I thought through it. And I figured out what the fuck I did wrong. And then I went back. It's like I fucked up everything I've ever done 100 times. There's no other way to do it.
You gotta realize when you have those shitty breaks what that is.
It's an opportunity for you to reassess, reboot, get better, figure out another way, find another way through. It's just challenges. And the people that look at those challenges and go, why do I always have these challenges? They're cancer. Those people are dangerous to be around. They will rob you of your enthusiasm. They don't give you any fuel. They're the opposite of fuel. The fuel people kicking ass. People that are out there just fucking hustling. Always getting things done. Always getting things done. My friend Jocko, every morning I'll check his Instagram page, 4:30, shows a picture of his watch. Get after it. Get after it. He's out there working out 4:30 in the morning. He does it every fucking morning. Why? Because he doesn't want to. That's how you do it. You go and get after it, you don't make any excuses. And those kind of guys are fuel. But those I can't catch a break guys, they're the opposite of fuel. They're just pissing on your fire. They're no fun. Get them the fuck away from me. I can't be around those guys. I don't want to hear that shit. I don't want to hear that shit. Get them the fuck away from me. Get them the fuck away from me. Get them the fuck away from me. I don't want to hear that shit. Get them the fuck away from me. Get them the fuck away from me. Get them the fuck away from me. I don't want to hear that shit. 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 Get them the fuck away from me. The people that surround him are all idiots. Because only idiots want to be around I can't catch a break guy. Only the dummies stick around. After a while, even if they're your good friend, you gotta be like, bro, you gotta fucking stop. You gotta stop with all this I can't catch a break bullshit. All the time you're complaining, you could be instead hustling. You could be instead chasing your dream. You could be instead figuring out what you're doing wrong, trying to improve certain aspects of your life, getting your shit together, reading a book, meditating, something. Fucking something. Something. Fucking something. But this I can't catch a break shit is not helping anybody, and it pushes everybody away from you. Get them the fuck away from me. I can't be around those guys. I don't want to hear that shit. I don't want to hear that shit. Get them the fuck away from me. Get them the fuck away from me. Get them the fuck away from me. I don't want to hear that shit. Get them the fuck away from me. Get them the fuck away from me. Get them the fuck away from me. I don't want to hear that shit. 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 Get them the fuck away from me. Away from me.
If you have a friend and you tell them bad news, they're actually sad, and you can tell them. They will listen. You know, they'll listen. They'll take the damn pain, and they won't tell you about some worst thing that happened to them, defensively, say. Or they won't secretly be happy that you got knocked off your pedestal. They'll listen. And then the other thing is if you have a friend and something good happens to you, they're happy.
Like you have an ethical responsibility to take care of yourself, you have an ethical responsibility to surround yourself with people who have the courage and faith and wisdom to wish you well when you've done something good and to stop you when you're doing something destructive. And if your friends aren't like that, then they're not your friends. Make friends with people who want the best for you. Friends with people who want the best for you. People don't exactly understand that it's okay morally to choose people that are trying to help you be better. And to shy away from people who are going to drag you down. Two drowned people is not an improvement over one. Make friends with people who want the best for you. Make friends with people who want the best for you. You're not morally obliged to go down with someone else's ship. Now you think that's pretty harsh and pretty rude. You can't abandon a friend in need. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that it is appropriate for you to look at your social surround and to make decisions. If you have a person who's hurting you and who won't quit and who's pulling you down, that is not necessary. Make friends with people who want the best for you. You go with people that are trying to elevate you. Make friends with people who want the best for you. You're not obligated to associate with people who are making your life work. Make friends with people who want the best for you. You are obligated not to associate with people who are trying to damage the structure of being. Your being, the family being, social being, all of that. Like, no. Wrong. Move away. Consider the lilies of the field, how they grow. They toil not, neither do they spin. And yet I say unto you, that even Solomon in all his glory was not arrayed like one of these. Wherefore, if God so clothes the grass of the field, which today is, and tomorrow is cast into the oven, shall he not much more clothe you, O ye of little faith? Therefore take no thought, saying, what shall we eat, or what shall we drink, or wherewithal shall we be clothed? Those are famous lines. That's sort of Christ the hippie, right? It's like, hey, let it all hang out. That's an old phrase. Do your thing and everything will come to you.
Let it all hang out. That's an old phrase. Do your thing and everything will come to you.
But that's seriously not the proper interpretation, because there's a kicker with this, and the kicker is this. For your heavenly Father knows that you have need of all these things. But seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you. That's a lot different than the hippie thing. That's a lot different than the hippie thing, right? That's a lot different than the hippie thing. That's a lot different than the hippie thing, right? There's a very, very, very interesting idea. It's certainly one of the most profound ideas that I've ever encountered. If you configure your life so that what you are genuinely doing is aiming at the highest possible good, then the things that you need to survive and to thrive on a day-to-day basis will deliver themselves to you. If you dare to do the most difficult thing that you can conceptualize, your life will work out better than it will if you do anything else. Well, how are you going to find out if that's true? There's no way you're going to find out whether or not that's true unless you do it. You have to be all in this game. It's like what happens at the beginning of the story of Pinocchio is that Geppetto wishes on a star. So what Geppetto does is align himself with the metaphorical manifestation of the highest good he can conceptualize. He aims at the star. And for him, the star is the possibility that he can take his creation, a puppet, whose strings are being pulled by unseen forces, and have it transform into something that's autonomous and real. Well, that's a hell of an ambition. You know, and we're wise enough to put that in a children's movie, but too foolish to understand what it means. It's such an interesting juxtaposition that we can both know that and not know it at the same time. You can go to the movie, you can watch it, and it makes sense. But that doesn't mean that you can go home and think, well, I know what that meant. Well, people are complicated, right? We exist at different levels, and all the levels don't communicate with one another. But the movie is a hypothesis, and the hypothesis is there's no better pathway to self-realization and the ennoblement of being than to posit the highest good that you can conceive of and commit yourself to. And then you might also ask yourself, and this is definitely worth asking, is do you really have anything better to do? And if you don't, well, why would you do anything else?
Therefore take no thought for the morrow, for the morrow shall take thought for the things of itself.
Sufficient unto the day is the evil thereof.
I spent a long time trying to figure out what that meant too, because it's another one of those lines that can easily be read as pro-grasshopper and anti-ant. Remember the old fable of the grasshopper and the ant? Maybe not. I'm not going to tell it, but the ant works and the grasshopper fiddles. And the ant has a pretty good time in the winter and the grasshopper dies. This is like a pro-grasshopper line, but it's not. It says something else. It says that if you orient yourself properly and then pay attention to what you do every day, that works. That works. That works. I actually think that that's in accordance with what we have come to understand about human perception, because what happens is that the world shifts itself around your aim. You're a creature that has an aim. You have to have an aim in order to do something. You're an aiming creature. You look at a point and you move towards it. It's built right into you. And so you have an aim. Well, let's say your aim is the highest possible aim. Well, then, so that sets up the world around you. It organizes all of your perceptions. It organizes what you see and you don't see. It organizes your emotions and your motivations. So you organize yourself around that aim. And then what happens is the day manifests itself as a set of challenges and problems. And if you solve them properly, then you stay on the pathway towards that aim. And you can concentrate on the day. And so that way you get to have your cake and eat it too. Because you can point into the distance, the far distance. And you can live in the day. Live in the day. Live in the day. And you can live in the day. That makes every moment of the day supercharged with meaning, because if everything that you're doing every day is related to the highest possible aim that you can conceptualize, well, that's the very definition of the meaning that would sustain you in your life. Well, and then the issue is back to Noah. Well, all hell's about to break loose and chaos is coming. It's like when that's happening in your life, you might want to be doing something that you regard as truly worthwhile, because that's what will keep you afloat when everything is flooded. And you don't want to wait until the flood comes to start doing that, because if your ark's half built and you don't know how to captain it, the probability is very high that you'll drown. I'm quite enamored of lobsters, as some of you might know, because I found out, this just blew me away when I found it out, just exactly how much continuity there was in the neurochemistry of human beings and the neurochemistry of animals. It's absolutely staggering. It's the sort of thing that makes the fact of evolution something like self-evident. Random mutation and natural selection is the only way you can solve the problem of how to deal with an environment that's complex beyond your ability to comprehend. I think what you do is you generate endless variants, because God only knows what the hell's going to happen next. Almost all of them die because they're failures, and a couple propagate. And the environment keeps moving around like a giant snake. You never know what it's going to do next. And so the best you can do is say, well, here's 30 things that might work, and 28 of them are going to perish. Anyways, back to the lobsters. So these creatures engage in dominance disputes. So it really is the toughest lobster that wins. And what's so cool about the lobster is that when a lobster wins, he flexes and gets bigger. So he looks bigger because he's a winner. It's like he's advertising that. And the neurochemical system that makes him flex is serotonergic. And you think, well, who cares? What the hell does that mean? I'll tell you what it means. It's the same chemical that's affected by antidepressants in human beings. And so, like, if you're depressed, you're a defeated lobster. Like, you're like this. I'm small. Things are dangerous. I don't want to fight. You give somebody an antidepressant, it's like they stretch, and then they're ready to take on the world again. Well, if you give lobsters who just got defeated in a fight serotonin, then they stretch out and they'll fight again. And that's like we separated from those creatures on the evolutionary timescale somewhere between 350 and 600 million years ago, and the damn neurochemistry is the same. And so that's another indication of just how important hierarchies of authority are.
Akira.
Loss of beauty is a catastrophe, because without that beauty, there's no call to higher being. This is also why, I've mentioned to people that they should clean up their rooms. That's become quite the internet meme. But I'm really serious about it, because it's really hard to do that. And it isn't just that you clean it up. You also make it beautiful. 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 It's really hard to make something beautiful. Make it beautiful. And it's really worthwhile. Make it beautiful. It's really hard to make something beautiful. Make it beautiful. And it's really worthwhile. What's really cool is if you learn to make something beautiful, even one thing, if you could just make one thing in your life beautiful, then you've established a relationship with beauty. And then you can start to expand that relationship with beauty out into the world, like into other elements of your life. And that is so worthwhile. It's just incredibly, crazily worthwhile. Make it beautiful. 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 And that's an invitation to the divine. Make it beautiful. You have to be daring to do that. Make it beautiful. And that's an invitation to the divine. Make it beautiful. You have to be daring to do that. People are terrified of it. People are terrified of color. They paint their walls beige. They're terrified of art. They buy some mass-produced thing. They don't want anybody laughing at them for their lack of taste. And they would get laughed at because they have no taste. But you have to, well, it's right, because what do you know, right? You have to develop it. And so you're going to stumble along and make mistakes to begin with. And you're going to show yourself, because if you buy, I think this is pretty, and somebody comes over and goes, hey, what's up with you? It's kind of hard on your self-esteem, but it's you're stumbling towards the right, you're stumbling towards the kingdom of God. That's what you're stumbling towards when you try to make an aesthetic decision. Make it beautiful. Aesthetic. 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 That's what you're stumbling towards when you try to put something in your life that's beautiful, and it's unbelievably worthwhile to do that. And you have to steer clear of the frauds and the con artists and all of that, and art is full of that, of course, because it's difficult to distinguish between the real thing and the fraud, but it's unbelievably worthwhile. Beauty is so valuable, and we're so afraid of it. It's not the only pathway to the divine. Love is one of them, I suppose. But beauty, especially for people who have an affinity for beauty, it's like music. It's one of those things that you can't argue against. You can't even understand. It just hits you. It just hits you. It's like a vision of the potential future. That if we just got our act together and beautified things, that's the place that we can inhabit, and that would ennoble us. And that's why Jerusalem, the heavenly city, is paved with gemstones. They're crystalline, they emit light. Yeah, it's the proper dwelling place for an enlightened consciousness. Beauty is the proper dwelling place for an enlightened consciousness. We ignore it at our spiritual and economic peril. It's obvious. There's almost nothing more valuable than beauty. In Sleeping Beauty goes to sleep. And the reason she goes to sleep is because she has parents who are quite old. So they're pretty desperate to have a child, like so many people are now. And they only have one child, like so many people do now. They don't want anything to happen to this child, because hey, it's a miracle. She's the princess. We're not letting anything around her. So they have a big christening party. And they invite everybody, but they don't invite Maleficent. And Maleficent is the terrible mother. She's nature. She's like the thing that goes bump in the night. She's the devil herself, so to speak. She's everything that you don't want your child to encounter. So the king and queen say, well, we just won't invite her to the christening. It's like, good luck with that. That's an Oedipal story. The Oedipal mother is the mother who devours her child by overprotecting him or her, so that instead of being strengthened by an encounter with the terrible world, they're weakened by too much protection. And then when they're let out into the world, they cannot live. And that's the story of Sleeping Beauty. And they apologize to Maleficent when she first shows up. They say, well, you know, they have a bunch of half-witted excuses why they don't invite her. We forgot. It's like, I don't think so. You don't forget something like that. And she kind of makes that point. It's right, the whole horror of life. You don't forget about that when you have a child, that's for sure. You might wish that it would say at bay, but you do not forget about it. The question is, do you invite it to the party? And the answer is, it bloody well depends how unconscious you want your child to be. And if you want your child to be unconscious, well, then you have the added advantage that maybe they won't leave home. And so you can take advantage of them for the rest of your sad life instead of going off to find something to do for yourself. Of course, you can take revenge on them if they do have any impetus towards courage that you sacrificed yourself 30 years ago and want to stamp out as soon as you see it develop in your child. That's another thing that would be quite pleasant. Be quite pleasant. Be quite pleasant. That's another thing that would be quite pleasant. Be quite pleasant. Be quite pleasant. So that's what happens in Sleeping Beauty. Yeah, well, none of this is pleasant, and nothing that happens in that story is pleasant. So Sleeping Beauty, she's naive as hell. They put her out in the forest and have her raised by these goody two-shoes fairies. And then the first idiot prince that wanders by, she falls in love with so badly that she has post-traumatic stress disorder when he rides off on his horse. That's what happens. And she goes into the castle and she's all freaked out because she met the love of her life for like 5 minutes. That's when the spinning wheel, that's the wheel of fate, pops up and she pricks her finger. They try to get rid of all the spinning wheels. They try to get rid of all the wheels of fate with their pointed end, but she finds it, pricks her finger, and falls down unconscious. Well, she wants to be unconscious. No bloody wonder. She was protected her whole life. She's so damn naive that her first love affair just about kills her. She wants to go to sleep and never wake up. Never wake up. Never wake up. She wants to go to sleep and never wake up. And so that's exactly what happens. And then she has to wait for the prince to come and rescue her. Well, you think, how sexist can you get? That's a boneheaded way of looking at the story, because the prince isn't just a man who's coming to rescue the woman. And the prince also represents a woman's own consciousness. Without that forward-going, courageous consciousness, the woman herself will drift into unconsciousness and terror. All she can do is lay there and sleep, like the sleep of the naive and damned. She has to wake herself up and bring her own consciousness, her own masculine consciousness into the forefront so that she can survive in the world. That's partly what's implicit in this idea, is that unless the woman is taken out of man, so to speak, then she isn't a human being. She's just a creature, and that's partly what's embedded in this story. So you don't want to read it as a patriarchal, you don't want to read anything that way. New Age people are very creative, but they can't think critically. But I can think critically. So this is a creative, theoretical enterprise conjoined with the capacity to tell the difference between bad ideas and good ideas. And hopefully what I'm going to talk to you about are the greatest ideas that humanity has ever produced. There are also ideas that we don't understand well, and whose highest level of formal development we risk forgetting because we're criticizing things that we invented as a species but that we cannot understand rationally. And we're predisposed to believe that ideas that we can't understand rationally have to be wrong. Sometimes that's true, but sometimes we're just not smart enough to understand them. So,
So also music is a kind of non-purposive thing, because you don't either play music to reach a destination, nor do you dance to reach a particular place on the floor. It is the doing of it itself that is important.
Music. It is the doing of it itself that is important. Music. It is the doing of it itself that is important. Music. It is the doing of
certain destination. Those orchestras that played fastest would be considered the best. The best. Akira. Dancing and music, more than other arts, represent the nature of this world. The nature of this world. That it is playful, that it is sport. That it may be sincere, but is definitely not serious. And as G.K. Chesterton well put it once, the angels fly because they take themselves lightly. Music. It is the doing of it itself that is important. Music. It is the doing of it itself that is important. Music. It is the doing of it itself that is important. Music.
The angels fly because they take themselves lightly.
The subject is. And I've done stories in a wide range of subjects. My inspirations were the fact that I had to make sales. I put them down as I'd like them to live on those pages. My stories are very sincere. I had to make sales. I put them down as I'd like them to live on those pages. My stories are very sincere. I had to make sales. And I had to come up with characters that were no longer stereotypes. In other words, I couldn't depend on gangsters. I had to get something new. For some reason, I went to the Bible. I came up with Galactus. I put them down as I'd like them to live on those pages. My stories are very sincere. I came up with Galactus. I put them down as I'd like them to live on those pages. My stories are very sincere. I came up with Galactus. And there I was in front of this tremendous figure who I knew very well because I've always felt him, and I certainly couldn't treat him in the same way that I would any ordinary mortal. And I remember in my first story, I had to back away from him to resolve that story. And of course, the Silver Surfer is a fallen angel. And when Galactus relegated him to Earth, he stayed on Earth. And that was the beginning of his adventure. And they were figures that had never before been used in comics. They were above mythic figures. And of course, they were the first gods. And I began thinking along those lines. The new gods evolved from those lines. And I began to ask myself, everybody else had their gods, what are ours? What is the shape of our society in the form of myth and legend? Who are our gods? Who are our evil gods? And who are our good ones? And I tried to resolve them in the new gods. And I came up with some very, very interesting characters and very good sales, which satisfied me immensely. I put them down as I'd like them to live on those pages. My stories are very sincere. I had to make sales. I put them down as I'd like them to live on those pages. My stories are very sincere. I had to make sales.
It was a good and decent and honest way to make money. Doing the thing I like best. Telling stories.
I did the stories and I did the illustrations. Sometime they would send us scripts, but I'd throw them out the window. I happen to be a guy who does what he wants, lives the way he wants to. I love people in general, even the villains in my comics. To me, are people. There is something in their lives that makes them become a problem to others. That's how I saw everybody. Whatever I put in my comics, I hopefully feel that this love for people may have been transmitted to them and help them not help them in any way. I'm not a psychiatrist, but just giving them another friend. My characters never die. It's my owns you to humanity itself. We never really die. You live on in your son, or you live on in somebody else. I don't know the answer, but somehow I feel that our lives are endless. The source, like everything else, is an everyday fact. The source lives with us day by day. We don't know what the source is, where it is. We can't identify its form, but we know it's there. This thing, this tremendous thing, governs our lives. And somehow we can all feel it inside. It's referred to as spiritual. It's referred to in many other ways. But we know instinctively that it's there. And that's what I put down in my stories. Because, like everybody else, I felt this thing. I felt this thing. And I felt that it was real. And I've kept it with me all my life. Now, I didn't resolve the questions. I'm a guy who lives with a lot of questions. I say, what's out there? And I try to resolve that. And I never can. I don't think anybody can. Who's got the answers? I sure would like to hear the ultimate one, but I haven't yet. And so I live with a lot of questions, and I find that entertaining. I find that entertaining. And if my life would have went tomorrow, it would be fulfilled in that manner. I would say the questions have been terrific.